Boker Tov, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome everybody to the Aliyah Day. Glad to be with you this morning. It's a joy to be with you as we're diving back into Parashah Re'eh, looking at this issue of canceling debt during the Shemitah year. We'll be reading some insights from Rabbi Monk and also from Mam Loez, and get as far as we can in Sefer Hinuk, looking at the various laws regarding this. We can better understand about canceling debt. And so glad to be with you. You know, one of the things I talked about yesterday, obviously, was tithing. And I talked about people, being fleeced, being led astray. Many of you have battle scars. Some of you have suffered the abuse of that, world that you lived in. Not everybody, but some of you. But one of the things that was really big back then, talking about the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, was, this belief that God was going to cancel your debt. And it was very unethical back then, by the way, because people would run up debt on credit cards or what have you. And then there was this idea that God was just going to erase it or cancel it or somehow. It was really childish. But what was really, in looking at the scripture, we're going to see that this idea of debt cancellation only applies to Jews. And who's a Jew really? A Jew is one inwardly, and no. A Jew is one who's in the covenant. That's who a Jew is, okay? Somebody who is saved, somebody who's in the covenant. So if you're not a Jew, it doesn't apply to you. And this is a very important concept. Why is it so important? Because we want to make a big distinction and we want to say, I'm a Jew and you're not. No. Because if you lie to people and give them false hope and make them think that something is a benefit that they have at their disposal, only to find out that they do not, that's not helpful. It's about being honest with people. So you're not a Jew, not yet. You can be, but you're not just automatically a Jew. You're not an Israelite. You're not a Hebrew unless you've gone through conversion and you become, in which case things like this begin to be applied to you. But otherwise, they're not. It reminded me of something one time some wise person said, that if you're not getting something the Bible promised, it's probably because you're not doing something the Bible commanded to be done. And it's a very wise statement. And so in any case, I think that these discussions are immensely helpful, because to me, it's about understanding your starting place. We have to figure out where we are so that we can get to where we need to be, but we have to figure out where we are at this moment. So if you think that you're a part of Israel or a Jew, and therefore, the debt cancellation of Deuteronomy 15 applies to you, and your debts aren't being canceled, then you're going to live a frustrated life. And it's ultimately, by the way, satanically designed to drive you away from God, because people tell you this should apply to you. And of course, it doesn't happen. And now you start to doubt God. What they didn't tell you was this applies to you if you're a Jew. That's the little, minor detail that was left out of the equation. You have to be in covenant, the covenant. And there's only one, despite what anybody says. So anyway, we're going to dive into this, figure out what's being said here. Good morning. Hey, listen, I got the analytics for the channel yesterday. They come out every week. YouTube puts out these analytics. And what's exciting, of course, this is just YouTube, doesn't count Instagram. I'm going to figure out how to do the Facebook Live. I need to get with Daniel and we need to upgrade our motif here. Anyway, that's beside the point, because I do think it'd be great to be doing a Facebook Live as well for those people who are on Facebook. And my new TikTok challenge is, watch the Aliyah. I'm just kidding. I don't have a TikTok challenge, but it would be fun, wouldn't it? Anyway, got the analytics that came out yesterday, and nearly 9,000 people the analytics are a week behind. So I get the numbers for last week, and then, I'll get the numbers next week for this week. But anyway, last week, almost 9,000 people tuned in to this channel, and that's fairly consistent. It was nearly the same number the week previous, and what's exciting is it's not just that there's 9,000 people who have tuned in, but they're watching multiple content. So we had this last month, I think. Well, I just looked at the number actually this morning, and we have 60,000 views this month on our content. And they even break it down, by the way, just in case you're wondering. They break down the analytics. It's really interesting. They can see that people watch on what types of devices people watch the material, the content. And what was interesting to me is that it said that 8% of our views are broadcast onto a television, which by the way was somewhere north of 20,000 views. 20,000 views on a TV. I find that fascinating. Anyway, I'm kind of a little nerdy like that. I like to dive into the analytics, and of course, it tells us what percentage of people watch from various countries, and that's always interesting as well. So, listen, all of that to say, it's exciting to see how many people are coming in contact with this information, with this material, with this truth, and that's the first thing. That's exciting. That's Baruch HaShem for that. And the second thing is thank you. Thank all of you who tune in every day. Those of you who comment and chat, and those of you who do not. There's a whole bunch of people out there who watch this content and they don't ever say anything for a whole host of reasons, many of which are perfectly valid. And we're so glad that you're watching. And I also want to add to that, thank you, Toda Rabba, for all of you who share this content. So many of you share the content on your social media platforms and what have you, and it's immensely helpful. And some of you who watch disagree, and you share the comment on your social media channels and so forth in order to express your disagreement and to show your audience whatever it is that I'm saying that you don't like. And by the way, I see that as well, because on the backdoor admin page, I can see if you've ever shared my content and you make a little comment about it or whatever, it tells me that my content has been shared. It's really fascinating. And I want to thank you as well, because by doing that, you are promoting our channel, and you're making a point that you disagree with me, and that's fine. We live in a world in which you can. But guess what? There's a whole lot of people that are like, hey, this guy's a nutcase. Let me go see what he's saying. And they get on the channel and start going, hey, wait, that actually makes sense. Wait a minute. That's a good point. And so thank you. Thank you so much for that as well. And keep doing it. keep doing it. So it's exciting. So keep spreading the word. Keep putting it out there, guys and guys and gals. Put the information on your social media programs and so forth. It's extremely helpful, and it's just causing all of this to keep growing. And the goal, of course, is holy sparks. We're looking for people who have the holy spark, who HaShem has ordained to become righteous converts, holy Jews and so forth. So thank you so much. Good morning, Chris and Crystal. Glad you're here. Speaking of a beautiful family, I hope you guys are doing great. And Ariella, Rafaela, so glad you're here. Peaches, formerly from Georgia, I am glad you're here. Chanel, Boker Tov to you. Hope you're doing great. Emmanuel, watching from the great nation of Nigeria. Hope you're doing fantastic. Who else do we have? Kriston, good morning from New Mexico. Glad to see you. Brenda Jones, welcome to you. Glad you are here. And Sergio, watching from California. Hope you and Danny and Johnny are all doing great. Shoshana Brenner, good to see you. Hope everybody's doing well. The chickens and the goats are enjoying the cooler weather. Oh, gosh, the cooler weather. Thank you, Hashem. Toda Rabba. August is the hottest month in Texas. And now we're coming into September. Thank you, Father. It's so wonderful. The coolness is in the air. The birds are singing. It's wonderful. The squirrels are dancing in the yard. It's amazing. Good morning, Zach and Yigal. Good to see you. Good morning, Leah. Hope you're doing great. Sarah Yokanon, good morning to you. Sarah Merritt, hope you and Shane are doing fantastic. Donna Jones from Ohio, good to see you. Baraka. Good to see you, Baraka. Hope you and Yosef are doing fantastic. I know Yosef listens. He just can't chime in because he works at a top secret government facility working on the next, USS Enterprise or something like that. And he's an engineer, so he can't, he's busy creating the next, atom bomb. So Baruch HaShem. Gianna, good morning. Roy, good morning. Amana, good morning to you. Who else do we have? Lori, good morning. Will, good morning. Glad to see you. Seth Holtz, hope you and are doing great. And Sonia, good morning, Sonia. I'm not sure if she's able to chime in here. And all of the people who are in Sonia's office who are listening to me, who thought I was a nutcase before and don't now. So glad you're here. Levi, good morning to you. Hope you and Johanna are doing great and being blessed. Who else? Hannah, good morning. Shmuel, good morning, Shmuel. Hope you're doing fantastic, sir. Good to see you. Ahava, Boker Tov. Michael, good morning. Pierre, good morning. Batya, good morning. Kosher Kid, good morning. Jeffrey, good to see you, Jeff. Hope you and David are doing great, being blessed. Zake and Rayford. Look at Zake and Rayford. Wow. Man, tuning in on his jitterbug. Good to see you. Good morning, Stephanie. Hope you and Will are doing great, watching from the great state of Indiana. Good morning, Kevin. If you're not a Jew, it doesn't apply to you, Leah says, kind of catch it. Yeah, hey, how about, sometimes we just say things around here and they end up becoming, there's nothing new in the New Testament, Yes, Jew can. All right, good morning to Keturah, and who else do we have here? Luis, our awesome Aussie, good morning to you, ma'am. Makaya, good morning. Corin, there's Corin. Good to see you. Hope you and Moshe are doing great. And Yosef, there's Yosef and Peggy. Good to see you guys. Joe Plunkett, watching from the great state of Virginia. Good morning to you. Joel, good morning to you. Did I say good morning, Leah? I hope you and I want to say shout out to Eliezer, by the way, who sent me a message and ordered a beautiful, wonderful, amazing kosher hamburger yesterday, and then ate it on my behalf. And so, that moved me. Good morning. Seriously though, he lives in a kosher heaven, and so I'm happy for him. Good morning, Sideburn. Good to see you. Good morning, Crystal. Who else do we have? Good morning, Milka. Woot. We're getting close, man. Milka is just a few weeks away of having the little girl, and so that's exciting. I have it on my calendar. It's already scheduled. What do we have here? Who else do we have? Daisy, good morning. Daisy's watching from Kenya. Baruch HaShem. Amazing. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. We've got Kenya in the house. Got Emmanuel watching from Nigeria in the house. I'm sure there's somebody on here from South Africa. It's really interesting, by the way. We have a lot of African, just the continent of Africa viewers. A lot of viewers from Canada, and of course from the United Kingdom, Germany. It's wonderful. Occasionally we have people from China, Australia, and those beautiful places like that. On Shabbat, we had somebody who, Keturah, what was the person watching on Shabbat from? There was an island off the coast of New Zealand or something, you said. If you can remember, let everybody know. It was really neat. Good morning. Did I say good morning, Micaiah? Good morning to you. Who else do I? Anybody? Okay. Did I miss anybody? Thelma, good morning. Who else? Anybody else? Good morning. To the Keiths. Good to see you guys. John, good morning. Hope you guys are doing great. There's nothing wrong with a jitterbug phone. If you have to use a jitterbug, that's fine too. Baruch HaShem. Who else do we have? I think that's everybody. Anna Smith, good morning to you. I'm glad to see you as well. Will said Tonga. Okay, that was the island, Tonga. It's amazing, right? People watching from Tonga. Sometimes Sylvia is able to get on here from Brazil. It's just amazing. All right, so let's dive into this and see about debt cancellation. We'll begin with Rabbi Monk's commentary on this particular topic. Okay. Let's see. It says here, at the end of 7 years, you shall institute a remission. So it says, regarding the characteristics and laws of Shemitah, the sabbatical year, it refers us back to Exodus 23:11 and Leviticus 25:8. Now, by the way, the Shemitah year only applies to the Holy Land with respect to fruit and so forth. Good morning, Matthew. Good to see you. So it says, Rabbi Hirsch remarks that one of the most striking consequences of the Shemitah year is the release of all outstanding debt. This law deserves comment, for such a practice would appear to be subject to abuse by unscrupulous people. To understand the law of Shemitah, one must realize that a debtor is supposed to do all he can to free himself from a debt. Nevertheless, circumstances beyond his control may prevent him from doing so despite his best efforts. We are familiar with the risk of sickness and accidents, which can have disastrous results for someone who is already in difficult straits, he writes. Okay. And by the way, good morning. I forget about those who may be watching on the Instagram. Good morning. Glad you're here as well. It says, it is for such cases that the law prescribes the canceling of debts after 6 years. Note that although the creditor no longer has the right to demand payment, the debtor remains morally obligated to make good the debt even 20 years later. So, this is an interesting nuance, because I talked about in the program how people were mentally and emotionally abused. And so forth with the that name it, claim it movement, that people got many tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people got swept up in. And I talked about, the promises that, the JC is going to forgive your debt and so forth. And basically that happened. I think it's safe to say extraordinarily rarely. Okay. In any case, what's pointed out here is really interesting, because look, if you owe a debt, and even here it's saying that the person during the Shemitah year is not, they're not permitted to press you for the debt, and that's the key takeaway. This does not necessarily mean that your debt is canceled, although, I mean, it is technically, in a technical sense. But really, as we'll read, the prohibition is really, as we'll read in Sefer Hinuk, the prohibition is to demand repayment. Now, for those people who are in difficult positions in life, that's a blessing. You don't have to pay the debt back. They're not demanding debt anymore, or demanding payment anymore, excuse me. But what if you're not in financial distress, and let's just say that you can, in fact, pay the debt back? Remember, we're talking about Jews here, which I'm going to explain in just a moment. And that the idea being communicated here, by the way, is that if that is the case, you have the means with which to pay the debt back, then subsequently you have a moral duty to pay the debt back. This is what I was saying, that that movement back in the day that fleeced people, that lied to them, it was not a moral movement, because it taught people. And listen, I know many of you probably were familiar with that. Rabbi Singer and I were in that scene for a minute, kind of in that world for a minute. And you would hear people talk. It was almost like they want to go out and run up their credit card debt and expect JC to pay it off, or go out and buy a Cadillac, or not. I shouldn't say just Cadillac. It could be anything, right? I mean, it could be a Lincoln, could be a Toyota. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? But anyway, go buy a vehicle or something and not make the payment and just expect JC to pay it off. It got nutty. But more than just nutty, it's immoral. It's immoral not to be someone who pays your debts, pays what you owe. And so that's what it's saying here, that you may not be pressed for it, but there's a moral obligation to pay it, okay? So it says here, moreover, if faced with an unprincipled debtor, the creditor can turn his loan over to the court, which would be responsible for collecting the debt after examining the situation. Anna asked, does this include if we can use a 401k to pay it? I mean, yeah. I mean, if you owe a debt, you got to pay the debt. It doesn't, unless someone, of course, really just forgives it. I mean, listen, if somebody's willing to forgive the debt for some reason or consider it paid in full, that's one thing, But what I'm trying to communicate here is that if we have created a debt, then we are obligated to pay the debt. That's all I'm trying to say. We have a moral obligation, and we shouldn't. You know what I think it comes down to? I think it comes down to the idea that somehow we're the victim. You're not a victim. If you bought the thing, then you owe for it. Okay. No one forced you to buy it, et cetera, et cetera. Sergio says, but we're under grace. I forgot, Sergio. Where is that? Anyway, so it says here, the collection of the debt by bailiff of the court can take place even after the Shemitah year if the court determines that, the debtor, the creditor, the person who owes the debt, is acting unscrupulously. Now, before we move on to the idea about this doesn't apply to non-Jews, and the reason it doesn't apply to non-Jews is because they're not in the covenant. People make this statement all the time. Gentiles aren't required to keep the Torah. My reply to that, oh no, Anna, you can make monthly payments. That's fine. That's whatever arrangements the person makes to pay off the debt is fine, whether it's monthly payments or what have you. That's perfectly fine. That people say, well, Gentiles are not required to keep the law of Moses. My reply to that is, that's true. They're not. Gentiles are not required to live by the law of Moses. In the same way that a single man is not required to live like he's married. In the same way that a single woman is not required to cover her hair. Why? Because she's not married. Why is the man who's single not required to live as if he's married? Because he's not married. Why is therefore the Gentile not required to follow the law of Moses? Because he's not in the covenant. That's why. It's very important to understand the why. Because a lot of people think, oh, the Gentile's in the covenant. He gets all the benefits of the covenant. He has all the glory and all the wonder and all the salvation. And he just doesn't have to keep the laws. A Jew does, though. And that's, of course, ridiculous. But the main reason that a Gentile doesn't have to keep the laws of the covenant is because he's not in the covenant. And that's really important, right? Somebody who's not in the Marine Corps doesn't have to follow the rules of the Marine Corps. Somebody who's not in the military is not subject to the UMC Uniform Code of Military Justice. I was trying to say it real quick and I couldn't. Right? I mean, somebody who's not in the military doesn't have to salute an officer when they walk by. Somebody who's, I mean, we could just go on and on and on, but you have to understand, why are you not subject to these laws? And with respect to the law of Moses and the Gentile, it's not good. Something else I want to draw your attention to is with respect to Noahides, right? Or non-Jews, Gentiles, whatever. In yesterday's portion, we read about taking the second tithe to Jerusalem, enjoying it while you're there and so forth. And an interesting notation is to be made from chapter 14, verses 28 and 29. It says, at the end of 3 years, you shall take out every tithe of your crop in that year and set it down within your cities. Then the Levite can come, for he has no portion or inheritance with you, and the proselyte, the orphan, and the widow. Remember that I talked to you last week when I talked about the Aliyah titled "For the Love of Converts," and you for the love of a convert or whatever. You should go back and look at that. I'll put it in the description of this video. It was I think an important teaching last week. But I made notation that very often when you're in the scriptures, when the convert is mentioned, the proselyte is mentioned, it's almost all I say he euphemistically, could be a female, of course. He is almost always mentioned in connection to the orphan and the widow. So everybody would understand that the orphan and the widow occupy a particular spot in the heart of God. Okay. They are the elevated position. Not because their situation is elevated. Nobody wants to be an orphan and nobody wants to be a widow. Okay. That's not a goal in life. But because of their extraordinary situation, because the orphan has no family, the widow has no husband, she has no support. Because of that, God takes special interest in them, and they occupy a special place in his heart. And we are warned that we're not to despise them or mistreat them or abuse them, and we're supposed to take care of them. And everybody, I think it's fair to say that everybody kind of knows that. But what is not so well known, because of Paul, is that the convert has that same place in God's heart, and for a lot of the same reasons. So here in this passage, we see you go to Jerusalem with your tithe, and you're to celebrate, and you're to invite the Levite, you're to invite the proselyte, you're to invite the orphan, you're to invite the widow who are in your cities, so that they may eat and be satisfied, in order that HaShem your God will bless you in your handiwork that you may undertake. Now, so God is saying, look, go enjoy your tithe, go have a good time, buy meat, buy whatever you want, buy strong drink if you'd like, and have a great party and celebrate in Jerusalem. But be sure that you invite these people. But I wanted to make a mention here. Who's missing? So listen, if the Noahide is a thing, and as people make believe that it is, or the Messianic Gentile, kind of the same thing, but different, then shouldn't it say, be sure to invite the Levite, be sure to invite the Noahide, the proselyte, the orphan? No, it shouldn't, but it doesn't, does it? In the same way that the blessing and the Amidah about blessing the Jew, blessing the elder, blessing the leader, blessing the proselyte, does not include a mention of the Noahide either. That's because there's no blessing for the Noahide. And this is important. Why do I point this out? I emphasize this point for those who are watching who are not yet Jews. You're watching this program because God wants you to be a Jew, actually. Even the ones who disagree with me. You know what's funny? I shared this. I think it was somebody sent this to me, and I don't want to say who I think it was because I may not be correct, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But somebody sent me a beautiful meme, and it was said something to the effect of, that people don't like you, but they keep listening to you, or something like that. There are people on this channel who do not agree with practically anything I say, and yet they keep coming back. They're watching like everything I do. Not just me, but anything anybody else does as well. And I think that's great. It's frustrating sometimes because they keep, and of course, naturally it's like Paul on everything. But anyway, putting that aside, the reason they keep coming back, they're like, I hate everything about you. I want you to stop. I hate everything you say. The reason they keep coming back is because probably they're a holy spark. And they're like that child that mom is trying to put down because they really need to take a nap and they just don't want to. They're fighting the nap. These people are fighting the call. And they're desperately trying to look at what's crystal clear and refute it with something that Paul said in one of his letters. One of these days, the red pill, they're going to take the red pill and they're going to wake up and realize they've been living in the matrix. But anyway, there are people who watch this program. You're not yet a Jew. You're a holy spark. That's why you're watching. And I want to emphasize why I bring this up about the Noahide thing again. And the reason is, once again, is because I want you to know that I want you to know where you are. We've got to start with where you are in order to get you to where you need to be. And if you think you're somewhere that you're not, it messes everything up. It's kind of like, not to say that you're an alcoholic, because you're not, thank God, but just to use an analogy. Before somebody can get free of alcoholism, they first have to recognize that they're an alcoholic. Maybe that analogy works. But here it's like, look, before you can get to where a place in which these blessings of the Torah, not just this, but all the blessings of the Torah apply to you, you have to first be a Jew. And if you think you already is one, then you see how this messes everything up. So that's why I hammer this point. So let's look at this. This idea of the mitzvah here we're talking about is during the Shemitah year, we're not allowed to press our fellow for the repayment of a debt, but you are able to press a non-Jew. Let's look at what the Torah actually says here. Okay, it says in let's begin in reading in verse 2. It says, "This is the matter of the remission. Every creditor shall remit his authority over what he has lent his fellow. He shall not press his fellow," say fellow, "press his fellow or his brother, for he has proclaimed a remission for Adonai." Okay. Verse 3, "You may press the Gentile." There's Sylvia. Good morning, Sylvia, watching there from Brazil. Good morning. "You may press the Gentile." Okay. "But over what you have with your brother, you shall remit your authority." Hold on one second, y'all. 1 second. I guess our monitors are doing other things. Let me do this. Excuse me 1 second. There we go. All right. You may press the Gentiles. So here we have in the Torah a stark example of how Gentiles are not in the covenant. This would include, of course, Noahides, because as you look at the Noahide ideal, and again, every time I say Noahide, just think of Messianic Gentile. No, they're not exactly the same, but they're close enough to lump them together. Okay. The Noahide, the Messi, they are a Gentile in every respect. Okay. Every respect. So right here in the Torah, we see as a Gentile, the Gentile is not in covenant. You're not allowed to press your fellow for the debt, but you can press the Gentile. Again, why do I press, pun intended, this issue? And that's because if you're a Gentile, stop it. That's from the Bob Newhart clip. If you haven't been to my Facebook page and see the Bob Newhart clip, the him pretending to be a psychiatrist, I made a comment that as a certified and authentic faux psychiatrist that I am, that is exactly how all of my therapy sessions go. And so you should go see the clip. Somebody had a hidden camera in one of my therapy sessions, and they caught it on camera. But in all seriousness, if you're not Jewish, join us. Go through conversion at Lapid Judaism and become a Jew in Messiah Yeshua, following the halakhic path that all converts ever since Sarah, who married Abraham, followed, okay, and become a Jew. Don't believe the liar who wrote a bunch of letters and told you were already in the covenant. He lied to you. He is a liar. Jim Jones, Joseph Smith, that he's on par with them. Okay. I challenge people all the time who bring up Paul. Can you show me anywhere? What Paul said this. Great. Where is that communicated in the Tanakh or the Gospels? Well, God gave him special revelation. Kooky bird. Does that sound like Kool-Aid? So you can't find that the thought that he communicates. You can't find it in the Tanakh. Cannot find it in the Gospels because God gave him special revelation. Does that sound even remotely familiar to Charles Manson? And yet people are like, oh yeah, perfectly fine. People wonder why people can vote for the Manchurian candidate. It's this kind of mentality. So it says here, you may press the Gentile. So it says Ramban comments that this statement has the effect of adding the weight of a mitzvah aser, a positive injunction, a mitzvah lo ta'aseh, or a negative injunction of the previous verse. Thus, whoever demands payment of a debt from his brother is transgressing not only a law lo tigosh, shall not press, but also a law of tigosh, press, because he's pressing a Jew for payment of a debt rather than Gentile for the Shemitah year. In other words, what it's saying here is that according to the wording Ramban brings down, that not only are you supposed, in other words, what it's saying is not only is it you may press the Gentile, but you should press the Gentile. Now, somebody might be wondering, and rightfully so, well, that doesn't sound very sweet. Why would Hashem put a mitzvah, a positive mitzvah, thou shalt, to press a Gentile? Well, I have a theory. My theory is, good morning, Lisa. Thank you for being here from California. My theory is, yes, by the way, pardon me, everybody. I'll share my theory in just a second. Lisa, thank you for the reminder. Yes, we are in Texas. We are in Saginaw, Texas, which is a suburb of Fort Worth, Texas. And I oftentimes don't mention that, and I should, because lots of people watch, they don't realize where we are. We are basically in Fort Worth, Texas, just 15 minutes north of downtown Fort Worth. So thank you so much for watching. So here's my theory. My theory is that the reason you're supposed to press the Gentile during the Shemitah year is so that the Gentile can go, whoa, 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 whoa. How come you're pressing me and not pressing anybody else? Well, because you're not a Jew. In other words, the pressure, I think, is supposed to be, this is my theory, it's supposed to be a motivator to get the Gentile to go, whoa, wait. So I'm not, you're pressing me because I'm not a Jew? Right. Well, how can I become Jewish? How can I sign up for the Jew plan? Exactly. I think that's the point. So we are supposed to bring the Jew, or not press the Jew, but press the Gentile. And I think the effort there is to bring the Gentile into the covenant. All right, one more thing here. Man, there's always so much more to say, and we're out of time and never out of content. I taught on this topic last year, and I will also put the link to that in the description of this video. I'm gonna put the convert link, that the teaching I did on the love of converts, and I'll also put the link on last year's canceling a debt in this description as well. But one final thing here, it says, however may there be no substitute among you. Rashi comments on the apparent contradiction between this verse and the text further on, which states, for destitute people will not cease to exist within the land. So there are always going to be poor people among us. We're never going to get rid of poverty. Messiah taught this very same thing. He taught the same thing because it's true, because it comes from the law of Moses. He explains that our verse is a conditional promise, which will only be fulfilled if the nation keeps the Torah. Failure to do so will result in the persistence of poverty. Though I wanted to leave you with this, and that is that poverty is a result of sin. Okay, poverty is a curse, and so one way that this is why we read within the Torah, obedience to the law of Moses leads to prosperity. Does it mean that everybody's going to be super wealthy or exceptionally affluent? Not necessarily, but affluence is not always calculated in money. You know, if somebody is just spared from sickness and disease, may that be for every one of us, that's worth more than all the money in the world. How deal? It's an honest question. I said, listen, I'm gonna give you $1 billion, but we're gonna surgically remove your eyes. How many of you would accept that? I would venture to say that nobody would. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that if you have your eyesight, you're a billionaire. So the point is that when we keep the law of Moses, we experience prosperity, and when we don't, we experience poverty. And therefore, poverty is a curse, and the curse comes when we break the law. That's another good reason why you'd want to be a Jew, because you want to be prosperous. Anybody ever notice that Jews kind of tend to be prosperous? Anybody want to put 2 and 2 together? Thank you so much for being here. Shabbat shalom to all of you. Happy prep day to everybody. Hope you do have a great Shabbat. I look forward to being with you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to have a Gospel of Ezekiel drash, and the subject tomorrow is going to be circumcision of the heart. What? Yeah, from the Gospel of Ezekiel, which also is found in the law of Moses. Circumcision of the heart is actually a law of Moses thing. A lot of people don't know that. So thank you so much again for being here. For all of you who have watched today, thank you. It's a blessing to have you with us. Please be sure and check out the other content on our channel. I will also put the links to those videos in the description of this video in just a minute. Please subscribe to this channel if you've not yet done so. Like this video, watch our other content, comment on this video after it posts. Let me know what your thoughts are. What was your takeaway? And most importantly, join us tomorrow. We'll see everybody in the house. Bezrat Hashem. Shabbat shalom and shalom aleichem. Oh, by the way, read your shalom aleichem song. Study your Hebrew. Practice, practice, practice. We'll see you tomorrow.